Welcome to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome into Soccer Morning, worldsoccertalk.com. Your home for the hits. All of the soccer hits. All of the number one jams in the soccer world. I feel like, I said this to Trevor yesterday, I feel like we need a music segment on this program. We need to work in more music. I don't just mean picking music for the intros and the outros. I mean like actual soccer music. Because there exists out there in the world a plethora of songs written about players, written about teams. I'm not just talking about chants. I'm not talking about club anthems necessarily. Obviously, you know, "You'll Never Walk Alone" is a legendary song in the soccer world for Liverpool and a couple of other clubs. I mean, like I have a Spotify list that I did a couple years ago that is all songs about Maradona, about Pele. Yeah, most of them are Brazilian, and in the case of Maradona, most of them are actually Italian because of his time in Napoli. But I have a whole list of those songs. We got to figure out a way to get those songs on this show. Can I do that? Can I just jam out one day, listen to a bunch of Brazilian music, some songs about George Best? There's definitely some English songs about George Best. Some punk songs about George Best. How fun would that be? I got to pick a day when there's nothing else happening, when there's no news in the soccer world. I kind of feel that that might be today, but we're not prepared for music today. We do have Champions League. We do have Champions League today. We got a couple other things happening. And we have two very good guests today. American Soccer Spin on today's Soccer Morning. Dan Wiersema from American Outlaws is going to join us. If you did not catch this, American Outlaws has launched a new program. It's called AO Watch, and it is in the interest of doing better. I'm just going to read you here a bit of the intro from the page at AmericanOutlaws.com. We can do better. We've said as much before. Any single instance of discrimination, racism, sexism, or homophobia is one too many. The American Outlaws is committed to aggressively enforcing our Act Above code of conduct, holding members accountable, leading fan culture, and continuously working to remove destructive elements from our sport and society as a whole. So we'll get into exactly what AO Watch is. It is active monitoring. It's a reporting system. You know what? Because every time a fan goes out to watch a game with their fellow fans, they should be able to do so in a welcoming, fair, enjoyable, unaggressive environment. That's what should happen. And that's what AO is striving for. Certainly applaud them for that. So we'll talk to Dan Wiersema about all of that here in about 8 minutes or so, 7 minutes. At 10:30, Jeff Crandall or or whatever. Jeff, tell me how to pronounce your name. I've never actually said it out loud. I'm going to go with Crandall because that's what it looks like. Soccer writer extraordinaire has been buzzing around the country doing some stuff. He's going to be doing some things for U.S. Soccer and the U.S. Open Cup. So I'm very much looking forward to talking to Jeff about his experiences and about what he has coming up. That'll be at 10:30. That'll be a fantastic discussion as well. As I mentioned, Champions League. Got a couple of games on the schedule. We are deep into the tournament. Obviously, not too many games to go around now. This is the part of the Champions League where you're not getting to watch 3, 4, 5 games at a time. Yeah, there's only two. Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, and Juventus and Monaco, both today, first legs of those ties. Atleti does have Marko Mandzukic, I know how to say that name, available to them. He has been cleared from injury to play in that match. It's a big boost for them. Obviously, Juve and Monaco. Monaco, the surprise package of the tournament so far, only in the fact that they managed to squeak through that group stage with scoring 4 goals total, and they come through. They beat Arsenal, obviously, in the last round. Now here they are taking on Italy's best team in Juve, and Juve is flying the flag for Italian soccer right now in the Champions League. Big moment for them. Yesterday, Liverpool beat Newcastle. You had Raheem Sterling putting on a display with the first Liverpool goal. Now, he did miss a pretty good chance. I mean, pretty good's probably the wrong word. What? Give me a word for that chance. Trevor, did you see that? At one point, Raheem Sterling had the ball. It was him and the goalkeeper. He was maybe 10 yards in front of goal. And flat out botched it. Phantasmal. This is a phantasmal miss. This is why we need Ray Hudson on this program. Give me a little Ray Hudson on this show to help me identify exactly what to call that Raheem Sterling miss. And of course, I'm on Twitter joking yesterday. And I said, all right, so he's asking for all of this money, or there's a contract dispute going on, obviously, with Raheem Sterling. Take away all his money. He missed that chance. Take away. Of course, I'm kidding. But he's also in the news for something less fun than scoring goals or even missing chances in this game against Newcastle. He's in the news for doing nitrous. Raheem Sterling on camera, apparently, passing out due to nitrous oxide. Does this video exist? Do I need to see this video? This is where I am with some of this stuff when it comes out on social media. When we talk about the controversies that bubble up. And there are these ridiculous videos. Look, honestly, embarrassing videos. This is embarrassing for Raheem Sterling. I'm embarrassed for the kid that he did the nitrous, that he passed out. And now Brendan Rodgers is having to back his player in public. Yeah, it's unprofessional, but he's professional with us, so it's fine. I believe in his character, I think is what Brendan Rodgers said. Do I need to watch this video? Am I missing out somehow? I don't mind some of the lurid, some of the some of the stuff that makes it out there into the culture that helps push the game forward in the U.S. I don't want anything bad to happen to anybody, though. I don't want anybody, and apparently this is legal. Is that even legal here? Is that legal in Britain? I don't know what's going on here. Why do people do nitrous? That's what I'm trying to say. What is up with nitrous? Turning this into a Jerry Seinfeld bit. No intentions to do that there. The U.S. women's national team at World Cup roster should be coming out today. That's what I've seen so far, floating around in the news. I believe that Ivan Scholarstep has a list of his suggested possibilities for that roster. Look, Jill Ellis has a lot of pressure on her. This is from Caitlin Murray over at Soccer by Ibis, SBIsoccer.com. Jill Ellis had a lot of pressure on her. This is a tournament that you would expect the United States to perform well in. Do not win a World Cup in a very long time. They have the talent to compete with the best teams in the world. This is going to be an interesting roster to see be announced later on today. So we'll keep an eye on that. Perhaps we'll talk about that in fuller depth tomorrow. Bad news out of Kansas City. Iko Para, center back for Sporting Kansas City, out for 4 to 6 months with a ruptured Achilles. The man cannot catch a break. Why? Why, soccer gods? Why? I like Iko Para. Iko Para is a very talented player. When Iko Para is healthy, he is a good player. He can certainly jump out of the gym. And to see him go down with another injury, he's turning into the Stuart Holden of American defenders. That's where we are now with Iko Para. Is there anybody else that approaches that label? Hopefully Stuart Holden gets back soon, by the way. But I feel bad for Iko Para. Best of luck getting back. Hopefully his recovery goes well and he's back on the field sooner rather than later. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Dan Wiersema from American Outlaws will join us. We'll talk about AO Watch, what it means for the organization and what it will do going forward. Don't go anywhere. Soccer Morning. WorldSoccerTalk.com. You're talking too loud.
director or head sounds too fancy. It's too formal.
Shh.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
Well, you heard it there on the air just as we came back. Dan Wiersema from American Outlaws. He's not the head. He's not the director. He's just the communications guy for American Outlaws. Right, Dan?
Just a man with a message, I guess so.
Yeah, just a man with a message, and you're going to convey your message. I know Dan. Dan's very good at doing this, which is why he's an excellent person to be spreading the word about AO Watch, and why I wanted to grab you, Dan. American Outlaws is a growing organization. It obviously has exceeded expectations from what those guys in Omaha ever thought it might be. It's become become almost a movement in American soccer. Lots of mainstream media attention, lots of focus on the way things are going, and that brings a certain scrutiny, but it also means growing up. Explain to me what AO Watch is and how it is AO growing up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you kind of had it right. It was, it's a very humble story. Justin and Corey, starting in Lincoln, Nebraska in 2007.
I'm in Lincoln. Yeah.
I helped run the Austin, Texas chapter, and in 2010, right before the World Cup, we were just the 25th chapter. So in 3 years, there are only 25 official chapters, but heading into the Gold Cup this summer, we have almost 170 chapters now. So in the last 5 years, we've added 150 chapters roughly to the American Outlaws, and our membership is over 30,000 people, and so that makes us the largest fan group in the United States, and with that becomes some unique challenges about how we operate and how we project ourselves, and the conversations that we have with people in the American soccer world. And with AO Watch, this is us stepping up. This is us saying that we are someone who wants to be a passionate and positive voice in American soccer and lead from the front and hold people accountable if they can't take responsibility for their own actions.
Dan, I think here, and some of this stuff is uncomfortable to talk about, but it's obviously important to address these things. I think there's a sense among people outside of AO, or people who maybe have had just a little bit of contact with the American Outlaws but haven't really gotten into the culture, the sense that there's a bunch of people out there who just show up, get drunk, they're not really there for the soccer, they're not really there for the passion, and that may be the element that's causing some of the issues again that we've seen in AO. But again, you're addressing them here. Is there something to be said for that element, or do you think this is just more of a proactive approach to any organization that has a large reach like AO?
I think it's a combination of both things, Jason. I think it's certainly taking a look at the American soccer landscape and being reflective about where we are. I think sometimes when we look at some of the criticisms that we get, a lot of people are operating in some very broad stereotypes, which is exactly the sort of thing that we're also being criticized for, is fans who operate on stereotypes and maybe are disrespectful. So I find that a little bit ironic. But on the other hand, it is acknowledging the fact that there are 30,000 plus members, and with 30,000 plus members, you have a wide range of people and a wide range of behaviors. The American Outlaws that I've been a part of since 2008, and the members that I know are great people who love American soccer, who want to support our men's and women's and youth national teams, and that's what they're here for. And the big thing is that there are people that have other motives when they want to come to this, and they're not willing to abide by these new rules and all of that, then we don't want them to be a part of American Outlaws. And I think AO Watch is about resetting the conversation. I think it's about looking forward. I think it's about moving forward and letting people know that we're here to take responsibility, and we're here to, like I said earlier, lead from the front and be an inclusive supporters group. I mean, at this point, when you look at 30,000 members, 170 chapters in every corner of the United States, we're one of the most diverse supporters groups. We are the largest supporters group. We're a diverse supporters group, from rural areas to cities, from men to women to Latinos to African Americans and gays and straights. I mean, all of those people count themselves as members. We're not a single city. We're not a single state. We represent the United States. And with that, we represent both the good and the bad, and hopefully the growing consciousness of a diverse America and a positive America.
Hey, look, obviously that's the way it should be for an American soccer supporters group. It should be diverse. It should be representative of the entire country and people from all walks of life and all different backgrounds. It's what makes our country wonderful, Dan. Some of that though is leadership, and I have to ask you before we get into the nitty gritty of actually how AO Watch works, and I do think that's important to get out there. Is there a conscious effort on the part of AO and the part of the central leadership? And again, I mean, to call it central leadership is maybe a little unfair because of the way the chapter system works. But is there an active push to get a diverse group of people in charge or running things or leading groups across the country? Because that's got to be a concern. You're beholden to the people who are actively volunteering to do it, Dan, but you want to make sure that the people leading these groups are as diverse as the people who are joining them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think our chapter leadership represents the diversity of our fan base and of the nation as a whole. I mean, we have chapter leaders from all walks of life, politically, economically, socially, all of their viewpoints, all of the sorts of things like that. I mean, and one of our big initiatives that's a part of AO Watch is something called the Chapter Advisory Council, and they are regional representatives. So they're chapter leaders that have been elected by their peers to represent a certain area of the country that then helps advise the founders of American Outlaws on what's best locally, what ideas we can implement nationally, so that we're constantly being representative of our membership. And so, I mean, there are so many different chapter leaders across the country that represent a wide range of race and gender and orientation and viewpoints. And we're interested in hearing all of them and having them constantly participate. I mean, just myself, I've started, working for American Outlaws in the last year. It's and I helped write American Outlaws Watch, the AO Watch program. There's a commitment there to grow this organization in a professional, forward-looking manner.
So let's get into this, Dan. Let's talk about AO Watch and what the active element of it is, how it's going to help monitor what's happening at AO events and certainly in stadium situations. And look, nobody wants this to be a bunch of people running around tattletaling on everybody else, but there does need to be accountability, and people should be aware that your behavior in a group that's supposed to be all inclusive is going to ultimately bring you some sort of punishment should it be divisive or disruptive.
Yeah, at the core of the AO Watch is, it starts out with one. We've always said this, in our code of conduct, what you do not only represents yourself, but when you're at an event or at our chapter bar, you're representing our organization. What's interesting to know is that usually with our ticket sales, about 50 to 60% of the ticket sales that occur in an American Outlaws section is actually for non-members. And so, goal number one is to make people more members so that we can have more recognition, whether they're at their chapter bars or whatever. But it starts with self-policing, which obviously we know that doesn't always work. And then it comes down to people keeping an eye. And, this comes from the chapter leaders. This comes from committed local members. This comes from guests who are here. And if they see something, just like you do at airport security or anything like that, if you see something, say something. The only way that we can remove, potentially destructive elements from any organization is if we're able to hear about it and to know about it. And one of the things that we've lacked before is those kind of eyes and ears to be able to say, if something goes wrong, we want to know about it so we can actually do something about it. And, the AO Watch form, you can put in, what chapter you're at, where you're at a U.S. event, where you're at a tailgate event, where you're at a night before, where you're at a chapter bar. What did you see? Are there photos? Are there witnesses? And the whole AO Watch is about identifying people and hopefully then taking concrete actions, anywhere from something as sending a warning to somebody who's acting inappropriate online to getting your membership revoked to things as severe as U.S. Soccer coming in. And they're a willing and helpful partner in this, because what's good for American Outlaws is good for American soccer and U.S. soccer. It's, you're going to get your tickets revoked and you're not going to be able to attend a U.S. soccer game. And ultimately, we want the AO Watch to be in the back of people's minds saying, don't be a jerk, and practice some basic human decency, treat people respectively. And that's really what we're about. I mean, the name is American Outlaws, but we want to be inclusive.
How much better would this world be, Dan, if people just follow that basic idea? Don't be a jerk. Just stop. Don't be a jerk. Show up. Have a good time. Chat, scream, yell, be passionate about this sport in particular when it comes to American Outlaws. But don't be a jerk. And I don't think it's that difficult, and it's certainly not too much to ask. All right, so there's a form that certainly people can go fill out should they have an issue at an AO event. I do like there's a text element to this, Dan, that makes it easy. Now again, you don't want frivolous things being tossed about, and I imagine there'll be some sort of process to go through these things and look at them and say, okay, this is legitimately something we need to deal with. This is somebody being a jerk to somebody else being a jerk.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is going to be kind of hard, because you are going to have to draw some lines, and there's going to be a lot of gray areas, and the system isn't going to be perfect. I think what everybody we're hoping people acknowledge that this is a first step, and this is a first step in making a statement and in letting people know that this is, and making people aware of this process. But it's going to be a continuous process of reflection, and then what I hope people realize is that, when Corey and Justin started this group, and anybody who's joined and has become in a leadership position, a chapter leader, is we just want to watch soccer, and we just want to support our national team, and we want to have a fun time doing that. But with 30,000 members now, in order to preserve American soccer support and American Outlaws for the future, there are certain steps that need to be made to preserve the good reputation that I think American soccer fans have. And I think you would hear from a lot of them that traveled to Brazil, by the hundreds, that, we were good guests in that country. And when we go to Canada, several thousand more, I hope, we'll be good guests there as well. This is about being proactive. This is about moving forward. And I've said that multiple times, but it's about preserving American Outlaws so that we continue to be a valuable and respected voice in the American soccer world. And it's going to be an ever evolving thing. If one element works better than the other, we'll work on that. If something needs revision, if we get input from our chapter leaders and our members who say, like, I think this will work better than that, then we want to do that. But, it's an important first step to say, one, don't be a jerk. And if you are a jerk, don't be a part of AO. And then moving forward and doing what's right for American soccer supporters culture.
Obviously, the proof will be in the pudding, Dan, and I think that a lot of people are going to be, they're going to watch and wait and see how this goes, and I think that's probably fair, and I think that you guys are certainly aware that that's going to be the case, but you are indicating to me that there's going to be some flexibility here. You're not going to just set this thing up, let it fly, and never make any adjustments should they be needed. Yeah,
I mean, everything that has ever been created, it needs to be flexible. Phones get updated, software get updated. Code of conducts get updated. Everything should be a continual process of reflection. I mean, I've been a professional educator for 10 years now as my day job. And, a lesson that I created, last year never just gets rerun the next year. It's like you always want to update it. What's best for the students, what's best for their learning. And if something didn't work, you reevaluate it and you rework it. And I think the biggest thing is that we ask from people is that, I think one of the big criticisms was that, we weren't being proactive enough. And we want to be able to get out in front of stuff, and we want to be able to say, this is what we believe. Other than that, we will win. but this is what we believe in terms of how American soccer fans should be. And it's not one of those things where we're looking to kick people out because, they're chanting too much or they've said a cuss word here and there. I mean, it's not that sort of thing. I think being an international soccer supporter presents different challenges than it does being a club supporter. Like Portland can hate Seattle and Seattle can hate Portland, but you're talking about, city conflict.
Right.
Anytime you bring in a national sort of thing, USA versus Mexico, like on Wednesday, we want them to dislike playing Mexico, but not dislike, tailgating with people of Mexican descent. That's where we need to make sure we're aware of all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be reflective. There's going to be an always, how can we do better?
Is there a question from Washington on Twitter? He wants to know if reporting can happen anonymously. Is the system set up for that?
Yes, absolutely. We obviously want as much detail as possible about the situation. Ultimately, we would like the person who is reporting to do that with their name so we can follow up with them. I mean, the other part of the AO Watch is not just to let the perpetrators know that they've done something wrong, but to also let the people know who are reporting that something is being done. And I think that's an important element. But yes, it can be done anonymously. It will obviously affect our ability to investigate and follow through and report back to the person. But we're really looking for things that that are going to kind of edge away at the integrity of AO, and we're committed to making people aware that we're going to be proactive.
Again, Dan, just to wrap this up here, this is a new program. This is obviously going to take some time to work the kinks out. You have an opportunity here for a pretty interesting first run of things down in San Antonio with the USA-Mexico game. Are we going to hear from AO on how this is going? Are you guys going to let us know, hey, you know what, AO Watch, we had some kinks, we're working that out. We had some incidents. Obviously, you're not going to out anybody, but are you going to give us a sense of whether it's working or not?
Yeah, call me back in a couple of months and we can chat again. And not just through you, Jason, but we're going to be working on this and evolving, and we want to be as open and transparent as possible about the AO Watch program. So, and hopefully again, like you said earlier, the proof is in the pudding. We hope that people feel comfortable about reporting these incidents, helping us move forward and making AO a place where everybody wants to be a part of that.
Dan Wiersema, communications guy for American Outlaws. That's what we're going with. That's what he likes. Dan, I appreciate the time and the explanation. And, hopefully AO Watch gets off the ground running and things are, and look, we don't want complaints because that would mean bad things are happening. We want people not to be jerks. Let's just say that first and foremost and move on from there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're looking forward to seeing what this does. And again, we just want to lead the conversation, and we want to be a part of when people say American soccer culture is awesome and amazing and respectful. We want American Outlaws to be a part of that conversation.
There you go. Appreciate the time, Dan. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jason.
Right.
Have a good day.
Let's take a break. When we come back, Jeff Crandall will join us to talk about American soccer writing all over the place. I think he was in Indianapolis recently, obviously formerly of the Chicago Fire website. Lots of stuff to talk to Jeff about. Let's do that after this break. Soccer Morning, WorldSoccerTalk.com.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
Here we go, back on Soccer Morning, joined on the telephone by Jeff Crandall. He is formerly of the Chicago Fire website. He's done a lot of stuff. I think he's recently worked with Indy 11 in Indianapolis. He's been bouncing around a little bit, some Red Bull stuff, some Galaxy stuff, MLSsoccer.com, obviously. And he's got a new project working on the US Open Cup social media stuff. Jeff, how are you?
Hey, good, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Jeff.
Yeah.
Let's start with the US Open Cup. I mean, we just had a discussion on this the other day on this show, and I got a bunch of calls from people. How do you get it going? What do you do? And producer Trevor says, "Oh, you bring in a marketing team to juice the tournament." People are making. I got an email from Sean Reed, who wrote the big book on American soccer fandom, whose name is escaping me at the moment, who gave me a list of stuff, up the reward for winning the tournament, all of these things. Anyway, U.S. Open Cup and its place in American soccer is always going to be an evolving thing. What are you doing, and what can we expect out of pushing the tournament this year?
Yeah, as my tour of American soccer continues, the next stop is helping U.S. Soccer up their level of coverage for the U.S. Open Cup this year. One big thing that's starting later today is the launch of an official Open Cup Twitter. I guess I should throw it out there at Open Cup. You'll see it. You'll see it relatively soon after I get off this phone call with you. But yeah, I mean, all the ideas listed. I listened to that show last week on the way back from Indy, and I thought there were a lot of good thoughts and ideas and things involved. But U.S. Soccer over the last few years has actually done a really good job. I think, though they'll never get the credit for it. I think they've started to recognize a need to cover the tournament more. You kind of see that the game of the round, what they did last year with it, and that's going to continue in 2015. What I'm going to be doing also, aside from the social aspect, is just bringing features, bringing more game recap stuff, intriguing things, and trying to beat the drum, more often for the tournament throughout as it develops all the way to the final at the end of September.
I think what gets lost for a lot of people when it comes to the Open Cup, I mean, obviously MLS fans, we're all sort of whoever we are, whether we're MLS fans, NASL, USL, excuse me, we're tied to our clubs, and maybe we don't look up and see that tournament and sort of recognize that the U.S. Open Cup is running until our teams or our league has jumped in. And I imagine that from U.S. Soccer's perspective, there's got to be something about let's push the narrative a little bit earlier than that. Let's get some people talking about these amateur clubs that have entered this tournament. Obviously, what you're going to be doing is going to augment the stuff that Josh Hackala has been doing for years at the Cup.us. And so give me a sense of how those things will complement each other and how we can get more people to recognize. And I'll admit that I'm one of them, that there's stuff happening way before the MLS teams get involved.
Well, you guys were talking about it last weach, and I think that's a really good start. Josh Hackala is actually a friend of mine. I've known him for a lot of years. We were both from from Michigan, and knew each other. I knew him before I moved out to Chicago, and he's done an excellent job with that website. We talk often about the Open Cup. There's no doubt about his passion for it. But yeah, I mean, you guys are talking about it. I think, covering the draw in the way, U.S. Soccer, part of the way this all started with U.S. Soccer was letting me go to Soccer House. I had the unique opportunity to do that the last couple of years and cover the draw and sort of explain how this all worked, because it didn't make much sense to anyone. Sort of trying to make people understand why the LA Galaxy might have had to fly cross country to play Carolina 2 years in a row, things of that nature. And, how a home team is decided, how geographical proximity works. It's not, the U.S. isn't the size of England, so it's a much more complicated draw process. I think, those types of things raise the awareness of the tournament from an earlier stage. And, I do have to say Josh Hackala, again, has done a fantastic job. you look at the historical things that he's written up, and he has some contributors on his website that have done the same thing. And I almost liken it, if we're talking about, getting people interested early, it's like when MLS moved up their season to the beginning of March, and home teams on that first day when in the north, you're trying to get a level of consciousness that while you see snow out at the beginning of March, there's also going to be soccer played. Just more information, more coverage will get us there. It's a slow process, but I think things are headed in the right direction with it.
It should be interesting to see how things go this year. I mean, obviously, we've crested that century mark for this tournament, that there's a lot of history. Again, that's part of what Josh has been doing at the cup.us, is bringing some of that history to the forefront and letting people know how rich this really is. But at the same time, I think it's I don't know if you've had some thoughts on this, Jeff. I imagine that you have. The difficulty is bridging those eras and bridging the history and everything that everybody knows about. Everybody knows about those old clubs that used to win this tournament in the 1920s, but then we have a big long sort of gap where it's a bunch of amateur teams. Bethlehem Steel went away, and then the MLS teams jump in, and in certain cities people care: Seattle, Chicago, DC. But beyond that, is there a sense that hey, does New York do the Red Bull fans actually care about this tournament enough to make it a big deal, and other places around the country?
Yeah, having worked for Red Bull, I think that I had that opportunity to see them up close for a month, and there was a little talk about the Open Cup. Jesse Marsh won, I think 3 with the Fire, 1 with DC, and I think he even mentioned that he really wants to win it with Red Bulls. I think it is on the clubs to sort of push the narrative as much as it is on U.S. Soccer. The ones that have taken it seriously have obviously been rewarded. The Fire and Seattle both have 4 Open Cup trophies, DC with 3. I've always likened it to, some teams are stronger than others, but I've always felt like what I saw from the Fire in my time there was, even when the season wasn't going well, when the Open Cup was taken seriously, you usually got rewarded for it. When I say taken seriously, I mean taken seriously from the first round that they were in it, and playing a pretty strong team each time. Each time they did that, they went to at least the semifinal the last 4 years. So, it is on the teams to take it more seriously. I think the prize money, the Champions League spot helps that. But yeah, hopefully more teams do. I do think that New York Red Bulls will maybe make more of an emphasis on the tournament this year.
So that's what you're doing now. Is you're looking to increase the coverage for U.S. Soccer of the U.S. Open Cup. You got Open Cup on Twitter, which hopefully is getting a bunch of followers as we speak, because it's already.
Oh man, I'm watching it right now. It's crazy.
There we go. And so, but you've also been doing a bunch of other stuff. And it's part of the reason I wanted to get you on the show, Jeff, is because I dig that. For whatever the reasons are, and we all, and those of us who have written freelance or are trying to make a life in soccer that's not, not all of us can be Shane Evans, for example. It's not always easy. And I know you did, you said you were at the Red Bulls for a month. I know you just spent some time in Indianapolis for about a month. What has it been like sort of bouncing around, getting a taste of these different organizations and how they're doing their business of getting soccer to be a big deal where they are?
Yeah, it's been interesting, and it was completely unplanned too. When I left the Fire, the only plan I had was maybe to take a month off, watch what's going on in soccer, but really withdraw a little bit and just unwind. And about 2 or 3 days into that, I got a call from the Red Bulls asking me to come and cover preseason, and I was sitting in my apartment here in Chicago. There's a foot of snow dumping on the ground, and it took me about 5 minutes to say, "Yeah, I'll go down to Florida for a month."
Right.
So, I walked into an interesting situation with the Red Bulls. It wasn't too long after that famous town hall, and Mike Pecky leaving, Jesse Marsh coming in, and that was interesting. It was interesting because all I knew of that situation was what I was reading online, what I was seeing from fans on Twitter, and then walking in, it was, almost a different reality. I think players were super perceptive, super, accepting to Jesse as soon as camp started, and you could see the team grow together as that month went on. And then the other big one is Indy 11, who I just finished working with this last weekend. Their home opener versus the Cosmos. It's a different type of setup. They're trying to get a stadium. They're in the American Second Division, but they're selling out every game. They just had their 15th straight sellout. Kind of being back around a lower division team and seeing, what a successful Operation Indy is with a much smaller staff is really impressive to me. Peter Wilt, Tom Dunmore, John Cluter, the rest of their staff have done a great job in promoting the sport in Indianapolis. And, hopefully they continue to make progress on the soccer stadium they're trying to get built there.
Yeah, those guys are some of my favorite guys in American soccer. Tom been around for a long time in the blogging scene, and obviously Peter Wilt is a legendary figure. In fact, somebody asked me recently to give some thoughts on Peter Wilt, since it's I guess it's been 10 years since he left the Fire, Jeff. Can I just stop you right there? Someone asked me the same question recently. Yeah. I believe we're part of the same little project on that front.
Yeah.
So give me your thoughts at having been up close and personal with the guy, and as you said, working with this is not MLS 3.0 type territory that Indy 11 is working with, and they are pushing hard on that stadium, and that may divert some focus that in a more mature organization is going to other things. How do they balance that out?
That's a good question. I think, the way Peter has talked about, like specifically with the stadium push, is, they need a first division stadium, but not necessarily to be in the first division. I think Indianapolis is totally capable of being an MLS team, and I think the setup they have there probably needs to grow for it. They need to get an MLS level stadium, but what I've seen the last month is really interesting. Beyond that, I wrote this in the piece that'll come out sometime this week. Peter Wilt to me was sort of like a role model in terms of, wanting to maybe go make a go of it in professional soccer. I always admired him from afar, living in Detroit as a Fire fan. Sort of the way he was open and interactive with fans, and was really a supporter and a front office guy. And I think if you look at a lot of the executives around North American soccer, they're at least going by the playbook that Peter was running way back in the late 90s, early 2000s with the Fire. So to get the opportunity to work up close with Peter, I've known Peter for a long time with my Fire association. To actually get to work with him was really cool, and just another added experience.
Let's turn to the Chicago Fire. It was a rough early going to this season, Jeff, and I didn't know exactly what Maloney was going to bring. Obviously, I love watching Harry Shipp, and if you wanted to just spend the next 10 minutes talking about Harry Shipp, I'd be fine with that. But when it comes to the Fire, I'm sort of more interested in some of these elements of selling that team, the fact that they're out in Bridgeview, which I may not have a full appreciation, but I sort of understand the issues that presents, and then whether or not they're really can put together a team that's going to capture imaginations and win titles.
Yeah, I mean, there's a challenge in Bridgeview. I live in the city, and when I went to work for the Fire, I moved to a neighborhood called Pilsen, which is on the southwest side of the city. It was mainly to make sure it was the easiest place to be in the city, that was a decent area that I could still get out to Toyota Park in a reasonable amount of time every day. So there's that right there. The Fire, I think, recognized that challenge. They've started a pub to pitch program that, actually Section 8 Chicago, they took over from Section 8 Chicago a few years ago. It's been really successful. There's a lot of awareness about that. So they are making, they are doing things to get people out to the stadium. From the transport side, they haven't really ever got, since Cuauhtemoc Blanco left the Fire, they've never really replaced him in terms of a star stature player. But I do think this year Like you said, it maybe took Maloney a little while to get going. David Accam is a very interesting prospect. I think he's only played 2 games for the Fire, but was amazing in the last game against Toronto FC. It took a few games for them to get clicking. I do think, I sort of buy into the philosophy sometimes that if you can get 3 good DPs, but that aren't necessarily, star names, but they work together, and they make your team successful over maybe one guy that's a bigger name, but maybe isn't going to be able to impact you in 3 different areas, that might be the way to go. It's more of a long view, but I feel like things are starting to come together for them after the last 2 games. The shame is that, because of the rescheduling of these 2 games this week, they're off for 20 days.
Right.
They don't play another game until NYCFC on, I think, April 24th.
So let me come back. I mentioned him, Harry Shipp, and his development. Obviously, last year was very good for a while. He hit that wall that the incoming college players tend to hit. Now, he obviously improved a lot at Notre Dame, and it was a good thing for him to have spent that time there and then be able to come back as a homegrown talent. But he's a guy that it's not that I want him to be farther along, Jeff. It's I wonder if he has the potential to be sort of a next level player for the U.S. or at least in terms of American soccer players, just based on his talent on the ball. And yet I don't know where he fits necessarily, especially right now in the next couple of years under a guy like Jurgen Klinsmann, who, as far as I can tell, doesn't have room for him in his formation.
It's a couple things there. You always want to be careful with a younger player not to hype him too much too early. And I think, but the thing with Harry, knowing him, he is very mature beyond his years, rather. So I don't worry about that as much. He's supremely focused on what he's doing. It's, you'll see a lot of Fire fans say that they want to see him play as a second striker centrally. But, this year he's, like last year, he's been out on the wing. I'm not sure that he currently fits well. Maybe he doesn't fit perfectly into the U.S. setup. Maybe Jurgen Klinsmann looks at him and says he wants to get another year under his belt before he gives him a look. He seems like a really good guy to at least call in for a January camp.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, Harry Shipp is a very good player. He's one of the best players the Fire have had in the last 4 or 5, 6 years. You saw the Blanc. You guys talked about the Quapelock comparisons last week or the week before. I'm really glad to see he's continuing his ways. From last season, I think he should have won Rookie of the Year last year. I was really surprised that he didn't. But Harry Shipp, Fire should be very proud and lucky to have developed him and to have signed him on the first team. Hopefully, we do see him with the national team at some point.
Yeah, can the Fire can they make him the center of everything they do, not just on the field? And obviously, you're going to bring in players like Maloney and you have Accam who's young and talented. But I mean, in terms of marketing that team, is Harry the Shipp the path to getting some more people in those stands and some more attention media wise in Chicago?
I think he has the potential to be, and if you look at the roster this year, there are a lot of, I don't know if it's completely intentional, but there are a lot of, whether they're homegrown players or other guys from Chicago that have come in, like guys like Eric Garrig, of course you have Mike McGee, those types. There seems to be more of an emphasis on Chicagoland players with the Fire right now, and Harry Shipp is sort of at the center of that. You see him in some of the team's marketing already, though. You see guys like Maloney and Accam, the bigger money guys, just as much. But I think Harry Shipp is working his way into that. I think you can tell a really good local story. He grew up as a Fire fan. Frank Klopas was actually his youth coach, and he loves the Fire. He wants to see the Fire return to the glory days, and if there's anyone to maybe drive that for the club that could be here for a few years to see it through, it might be Harry.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Mike McGee is the guy right now, or he would be if he was on the field, and we hope to see that. Before I let you go, Jeff, is there a better Twitter game in American soccer than Mike McGee?
No, absolutely not. I mean, and the thing is, I don't want to brag, but American soccer should at least pat me on the back because I think I pestered Mike McGee for about a year to get on Twitter. I forget when he actually did. I think he went to MLS Cup. It might have been around the time he won the MVP award in 2013. But Amanda Vandervoort at MLS, I think I liken it to, I listened the Jar Cap, and she kind of just she took it off all the way. But I mean, he's been a gift to American soccer Twitter for sure, and I love seeing his tweets. I can't wait to see what's up next.
Speaking of tweets, follow Jeff on Twitter. It's Jefe Crandall, Jefe Crandall on Twitter. North American Soccer free agent is the way that he's describing himself these days, doing stuff all over the place. Look forward to the Indy 11 piece. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate the time. I'll hope to have you back very soon.
Hey, thanks, Jason, and make sure people follow the @Open Cup account. I think, I'm trying to find it, but I believe that we've already got over 1,000 followers since this interview started. So thank you for that coverage. It's very much appreciated.
I see 973. We got to do better, people. Get on that. Follow Open Cup for Jeff and for me. Appreciate it, Jeff. We'll talk to you soon, man.
Thanks, Jason.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, the phone lines will be open. You'll have your chance to jump in. It's Open Cup, it's MLS, it's Champions League, whatever you want. 646-832-3909. Be right back.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
Back on Soccer Morning, that Open Cup account, Jeff Crandall running that over for U.S. Soccer. Over 1,000 followers. Yeah, you guys are doing that. 1,100 followers. Fantastic stuff. Make sure you're following Open Cup on Twitter if you have even a soupçon of interest in that tournament, and you should. Why shouldn't you? It's fantastic. As people continually say, this is what we always get when we talk about the Open Cup. It is March Madness for soccer. It has that potential. Now, yes, it takes place over a much longer time period, and the games aren't centralized, and we obviously have television and broadcasting issues, but come on. It has that Cinderella element. It has that historical element. It has the romance of these little guys having the opportunity to climb up, get through into the 4th, 5th, 6th round, and have an opportunity to knock off one of the big boys. And I remember, for me, one of the most vivid soccer memories I have of the last couple of years is Eric Winalda taking that Cal FC team up to Portland and beating the Timbers. It was a bad day for Portland Timbers fans, but it was a fantastic day for Cal FC and for the Open Cup. It created a buzz around that tournament that I'm not sure we've seen since then. Now, we get that when we get down to the Open Cup final, and you end up with Eddie Johnson skying a penalty at Sporting Park, and you come to, obviously, last year in Philadelphia, nearly the Union nearly winning that tournament at home, Seattle getting another Open Cup under their belt, putting their trophy case. Those games get a little bit of attention. Hopefully, U.S. Soccer putting some effort behind, and as Jeff said, maybe they don't get quite as much credit as they should for pushing the tournament, but some of this it's behind the scenes, and we need to see it out front. Having Jeff Crandall on the game, running U.S. Open Cup stuff for U.S. Soccer is a fantastic step forward. I'm very excited to see what he's got. And thank you for following. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm going to continue to tell you to go follow Open Cup on Twitter. Open Cup. Very easy. Open Cup. And definitely follow a U.S. Open Cup and Josh Hackle's efforts as well. Fantastic. Josh has been keeping that flame going for quite some time now. It's U.S. Open Cup is the official Twitter handle for Josh Hackle's website, thecup.us, which, again, has no connection to U.S. Soccer. It's completely a labor of love. Completely. 100%. Phone lines are open, 646-832-3909. We can talk about whatever you want. I'm turning the steering wheel over to you. I'm handing you the helm. You have the opportunity to take us in whatever direction you so choose. You can talk to producer Trevor. Maybe you just want to call up producer Trevor and say, hey, man, how's it going? How's it going? What's going on? What's happening? Maybe you just want to say hello. Prefer you didn't do that on the air because, more important stuff here to talk about. Certainly can do that with Trevor. I think Trevor likes to hear from our fans. This adds a whole new wrinkle to the process. Pretty soon we're going to have some stories to tell. I'm not suggesting that you guys come out, call up and mess with Trevor. I want you to get on the air. I want you to talk about soccer. Perhaps you want to talk about this. NBC and Fox are both going to have live soccer over the air this weekend. Is that a big deal? I mean, look, we've seen games over the air on NBC. We've seen games over the air on Fox, certainly when it comes to the Champions League. But both of these networks doing it at the same time, does that represent some sort of step forward? Do we even care if it does? Are we just sort of taking it for granted now that soccer is going to have a place on these over-the-air networks occasionally? It's just where we are. And again, soccer's not going anywhere. We're good to go. Soccer's a sport in the United States that people care about. But English soccer specifically has a footprint now, a toehold, a grip on the American soccer fan base and American sports fans in general, I think. Because if anything's going to transcend, this is not meant as a slight to MLS. And I think MLS is certainly vividly aware of where they need to go and what direction they need to push and how much attention they need to garner for themselves. But if there's ever going to be a soccer product that's going to sort of transcend that divide between American casual sports fan and American soccer fan, it's going to be English soccer. It's going to be the Premier League and it's going to be the FA Cup. And that's what you've got coming up this weekend. You got Fox's broadcast of Arsenal Reading in the FA Cup at 12:20 Eastern. And Chelsea-Manchester United 10 minutes later at 12:30. First one on Fox, second one on NBC Sports, on NBC proper, excuse me. Obviously, that's the point. So we we have an opportunity to see that. And then obviously we've got soccer before that, USA Mexico tomorrow night. Rick in Milwaukee, what's up?
I'm Ray from Milwaukee.
See, we're already having screener problems. Trevor, you're fired. I'm sorry, Rick. Ray. Damn it, Ray. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I just want to talk a little about U.S. Mexico first, a little bit about the rivalry, and then a little bit about Mexico U.S. The thing for me is I think it's the first time in a long time that both public enemy number ones are not going to be in this. There's a little bit of the nasty's not there. They're Rafael Marquez or Landon Donovan for the first time in 15 years. So it takes a little step back.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you. I'm trying to think of a good analogy here. I'm going to botch this pretty hard, but I mean it's certainly like back in the day when you had some of those big NFL rivalries, or even nowadays, if you had the Patriots and the Broncos playing and they both had backup quarterbacks, would you be as interested? No, probably not. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see this game without a Landon Donovan and without a Rafa Marquez. And you're right, that means maybe that's part of the reason I feel empty about this game. I'm seeing some people on Twitter talk about how excited they are. Some of my colleagues over at ESPN FC, and I don't feel it, Ray. Help me
right.
feel it, Ray.
Well, a lot of it is too because of the player selection as well. I mean, the Mexican national team probably is not fielding a single starter. And what I don't understand about Marco Fabian is with the first place of Chivas, and he's a big reason why they're in first place. And for him to be not admitted, this is the third friendly in a row that he's not going to participate in at all.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really interesting to see what Miguel Herrera does from a tactical perspective, because it's not a bunch of Club America guys sprinkled in with a bunch of León guys.
Yeah.
These guys are coming through all different parts of Liga MX. And some of these guys don't play the Miguel Herrera style of football.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, he's going with some different names. Appreciate the call, Ray. It's going to be fascinating to see what Miguel does. And certainly, I don't know what Clinton's going to do either. And nobody knows what the hell Clinton's going to do with his team. Let's go to Mike in Philly. What's up?
Hey, Jason. I just need to completely disagree with you in terms of your statement a couple of minutes ago saying how English soccer is really going to be what ends up transcending
hold on. Mike,
capturing the casual audience.
Mike, give me an opportunity. Well, okay, certainly the mainstream American English-speaking audience, because we already know that Mexican soccer is massive in the U.S. That's a given. I'm taking that and I'm setting it over to the side. If you're disagreeing with me that English soccer is going to grab the mainstream audience, then okay, fine, throw it at me. What's up?
Well, I mean, English soccer will grab the soccer fan.
Okay. All right.
And I know I'm in the minority here. Honestly, I'll watch it as a neutral. I just can't bring myself to be invested in a country that I've never visited. I have no connection to.
That's fine.
A few years back, when before Philly got a team, I decided I was going to be a Chelsea fan. And then about a year in, I'm looking at this jersey I bought. I bought a Michael Ballack jersey. I'm like, why the hell did I buy this thing? I have no connection to London. I don't care. I mean, I can certainly appreciate the quality of play, but just as an American, there's always going to be that disconnect with a foreign country. And I think the only league that can actually capture a true casual American audience is going to be MLS.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Years down the road, once the quality is up.
Right. Well, you're okay. Certainly, you're right. Certainly, MLS has large advantages, Mike, that make it more likely to grab a casual audience distantly into the future. Again, I mean, I don't want to go over the myriad problems MLS has perception-wise with the casual American sports fan, but there are lots of them, and it's not just that it's soccer and everybody and the American sports fan is traditionally hated on soccer. It's the level of pay for a lot of these guys. If the middle of the road guy is making $100,000 and the American sports fan is used to a two-inning reliever, a middle reliever in baseball making $8 to $10 million a year these days, or 4 or 5 or whatever the hell it is, there's a problem there. I'm not saying those baseball players should be making that much money, or get as much as you can. But when the casual American sports fan looks at soccer and they go, MLS is what now? Oh, their payroll is $4 million. You gotta be kidding me. They're not gonna care. And that's a long road. All I'm saying is it's a long road, Mike. You may be right that English soccer may never cross that divide, but I think that there are enough similarities that the world is shrinking small enough, and that there is enough effort on the part of American outlets like NBC and like Fox to bring Americans closer to that event. Now, culturally, there are some problems. I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, it will continue to grow. But again, I think that's going to be contained within the soccer community more so, or someone with a passing interest in soccer. And then it's just going to plateau at some point, is my belief.
Fair enough.
And then at that point, things will switch over to the U.S. I mean, and again, I know I'm in the minority here, but I'm an English speaker. I took some Spanish in high school. I can pick up bits and pieces. But I feel like I personally have more of a connection to the Mexican League and have more interest there just based on proximity, really.
Appreciate the phone call, Mike. I got to move on. It's an interesting discussion to consider exactly where the English Premier League can go and whether or not there's a ceiling. Jay in Charlotte wants to talk about the U.S. Open Cup. What's up?
How you doing, Jason?
Thanks for waiting, man. What's on your mind? You have a bird? Why is there a bird in the background, Jay? What's happening?
Hey, I'm outside. What can I say? It's beautiful. It's beautiful in North Carolina. Hey, we like being outside. So
all right. You be outside, but you tell if that bird is too much, I'm going to drop you. But you tell me what you got on your mind this morning about U.S. Open Cup.
All right. Well, I'll make it real quick. My my statement was that we're dealing with, a lot of people trying to figure out, how to make the Open Cup, more popular. And my thought, this is just my opinion, my thought was instead of trying to take the whole country, you put the whole country in the tournament, but what about the idea of making each state its own competition? You take all the clubs, maybe not all the clubs, but let's say the top 16, top 20 clubs in each state. And they play each other to get out of their individual state, no matter what state it is. And then
it's not a bad. It's not. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, Jay. It's not a bad idea, but I think it creates an incredibly unbalanced tournament. Incredibly.
Well, no, I would agree with you that it would make a completely unbalanced tournament as far as like a state like Montana may only have a certain amount of teams versus a state like New York, which would, that playoff would take forever. That's why I said you may have to just give, in a state like maybe New York, it's the top 16. You can't take every team, so it's the top 16. But then it would force, the Red Bulls and NYSC and the Cosmos to play every year. You wouldn't hope to play each other. You would know if you're playing for the New York State Championship to get out of your state to play in the U.S. Open Cup, the final round, you would have to play each other every year, which means Cosmo fans would have to play NYC fans.
Well, there's already a built-in regional element to the tournament. I'm not sure exactly how it works. Usually I just wait for the draw to come out and then I respond to it, but there's some of that built in. Jay, I'm gonna let you go because we got a lot of guys on call, a lot of people on hold trying to get in with other stuff. But it's an interesting idea. I just don't think the U.S. Open Cup necessarily needs a format retool. It just needs more pushing from behind to get it out there in public. Jose's in Dallas. What's going on?
Hi, Jason. It's good to be on the show. I'm a fan, and I want to call for Clopas' head. I'm a Montreal Impact fan, and unfortunately, the only game that the Montreal Impact have won was under the direction of Mario Biello. It wasn't Clopas that was there in charge, and I think it's time for a change. I think as soon as the CONCACAF Champions League is over, we need something different. In paper, we have a good team, but I think it's time for a change now.
That's interesting. Calling for Klopas to be, maybe people haven't been paying attention to that, and you point out Biello. I don't know. I don't know that you can do that. And this is a club that has had so much turnover and change and tumult in their front office, Jose, that really, why would you want to mess with anything that looks positive right now?
I think it looks positive as far as the CONCACAF Champions League goes, but we haven't been there in the MLS. And really, if you look for the entire record of Frank Klopas, it hasn't been a positive one. We've had a lot of losses.
Yeah, obviously last year was bad.
Unfortunately, we need something different. I think the administration is on the right path. And yesterday there was an interview that Joey Saputo have, and he was talking about how it was important for a continuation and how he gave carte blanche for Klopas at the beginning of at the end of last season when things weren't looking good. But at some point you have to say enough is enough. And we have been going through the next rounds in the CONCACAF, but it has been the away goal. And they've been playing well, but I just don't think it is enough. I think the team is strong as far as CONCACAF. We might pull something at the Azteca. But after that, I think we need something new.
Interesting. Thanks for the call, Jose. I can't imagine that you would fire a guy who got you this far, who was in charge when you got this far in this Continental Tournament, a tournament that no MLS team has ever won, and only one other MLS team has made the final of in this format. I don't understand how you could possibly call for Klopas to be fired. Now, again, the league is a different story, as Jose identified, but give him a chance here after coming out of this final. John's in Dallas, too. What's up?
Hey, Jason. Just real quick, I want to chat with you about a couple of things. I want to chat about the Open Cup, but I'll come back to that in a second. A guy a couple callers back, I guess, was commenting on some statements that you made about, the casual American sports fan, having their imaginations captured by the Premier League. And he, I think, was kind of countering that. He said he disagreed with you, and he said that, he didn't feel ties to London. He said he bought a Ballot Chelsea shirt, I guess, and regretted it, on and on and on. And I just, I wanted to say that I think we're talking about two different things here. I wouldn't consider myself a casual fan. The only thing on my television practically is soccer. But I too have no ties to London or any of these European cities, quite frankly, outside of a couple I've visited. So I don't care about London. I don't care about Chelsea from that perspective. But this is one of the best leagues, certainly one of the most entertaining leagues on the planet, and it certainly captured my imagination. I think the same could be said for a lot of, particularly casual fans. When the star power is there, the level of play is high. I mean, do you feel connected to London? Maybe not, but does that necessarily need to be there to capture your imagination?
I think it's important to note, and I think this is true across a lot of sports, not just soccer, but it's true of American football and baseball and basketball. There are two distinct kind of fans when we talk about sports. There's the general fan of the entire competition or the entire game or whatever it is. Maybe even a student of the game, if you want to put that on people. People who break down the 3-4 defense against the spread offense. People who talk about the way basketball teams play and and people who look at baseball stats in depth. Those people are different than the guy who's a Red Sox fan, a Yankees fan, a Lakers fan, a Dallas Cowboys fan who really only cares about his team. Now, the NFL has done an amazing job of getting people to care about their sport across the board. People are watching it at Sunday night. They're watching on Monday night. They're watching games during the day. And it doesn't really matter who's on television. They may care about their local team more, but it really doesn't matter. They'll watch any sort of football. That's where I kind of see the English Premier League crossing a boundary that MLS has yet to figure out how to get across. And that's, people might watch, Stoke and Hull is not going to be a good game. But people are going to watch Chelsea and Leicester, even if Leicester's in the relegation zone, because there's something else about it. And I'm not talking about NFL and TV numbers here, John, but I'm saying that people are going to gravitate to it, just like you said, because it's the biggest league in the world, the richest league in the world. Is it the best soccer? No, probably not. But that it's the soccer most available to us that is not called MLS.
I completely agree. Is it the best soccer in the world? Maybe not. Probably not, actually. But it is the one that's most accessible, and quite frankly, is the one that's getting really kind of shoved down our throat at the moment in this country. And that, for better or for worse, I guess. But again, the notion, what he was speaking to was the notion or girls for that matter, who they say, okay, I'm going to get into soccer, I'm going to pick a club, and I'm going to all of a sudden be this massive Chelsea supporter, for example, whatever it is.
I don't think that's necessarily important.
I can't say that again.
I just don't think that's necessarily important to my point.
No, I agree and that's exactly what I was saying. I just thought you guys were talking about two different things, and I totally agree with your point. I guess I was kind of disagreeing with what he was saying.
No, that's fair. You know, I think that there are, look, and we've got people on Twitter right now. Randy's on Twitter saying, hey, both of you are wrong. It's going to be Liga MX. And I mentioned Liga MX is already the most popular soccer league in the United States. And I am now, by no means am I trying to drive a wedge between the large fan base of Hispanic soccer fans, Mexican-American soccer fans, and everybody else. But there certainly is, there's certainly something to be said with demographics playing a large role in that. And I don't know what the crossover is, and I don't know that we'll ever say that Liga MX is the most popular, and it's probably the most important league in the United States right now from a marketing standpoint. But when you talk about outlets like NBC, like Fox, the English game is where they're latching onto that because they see the opportunities there. And again, even if the culture is foreign to a lot of people, it's still the same language. They can still understand what's going on, and that matters. I think that matters.
I totally agree. I actually was waiting for this guy to comment on it, and he didn't do it. But because you made the point about Liga MX being the largest league basically right now in the United States in terms of viewership and so forth, and I was waiting for him to say like he didn't really necessarily agree with that, because I'm willing to bet that guy probably doesn't follow it at all, and I would, I don't know him, but I suspect that a lot of the people around him probably aren't following it as well, just like the people around me aren't following it, and I'm not following it that closely. I'd love to, but my Spanish isn't that good, so it gets a little, I lose a little bit it loses a little bit for me when I tune in to watch it, right?
Well, look, ESPN even tried an experiment. They haven't done it recently. I haven't seen it. They tried an experiment for a little while where they were having a Liga MX game broadcast in English. Alejandro Moreno was on that broadcast with who was the other guy? Trevor, help me out. So they obviously are trying to kind of bridge that gap, but there is certainly a gap in terms of those audiences. And again, we're getting bogged down in sort of a minutia here. I'm talking about what I'm saying essentially here, John, and I don't know if anybody else is going to get this. I'm saying that the league, the sport, the league that's going to cross over into your morning sports talk radio guys in Chicago and Philly and LA and New York and Dallas, where that's going to cross, the league's going to cross over is the Premier League first. I mean, occasionally you may hear about MLS on your local station, either because the local team has bought some time or has some influence or pushes to get a guy on the air as a guest. But maybe it's Champions League, maybe it's not even English football, maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. But I just can't imagine that there's any other league that's going to show up on the fan in whatever town other than English football. I don't know. I mean, I'm saying it's going to happen. I'm saying if it does, it's going to be that league.
I couldn't agree more, and I'd really love to hear like a counter argument to that. I don't know how you would argue that another league could do something like you're describing above and beyond the EPL. But anyway, if you have a second, Jason, I was just going to ask you real quick about the Open Cup. If you have a second.
Sure.
You guys were talking about it earlier, and I didn't hear all of it, so if I repeat something you've already gone over, I apologize. But you're talking about the Open Cup and talking about how wonderful you feel it is, and kind of trying to get people to support it and follow it. And I completely agree with you. I'm trying to do everything I can to really kind of get into the tournament, but something that you talked about in the past, and I think that's something the Open Cup kind of suffers from, is I just don't know that media is making a big deal of this, and or MLS or U.S. soccer in general, right? And what I mean by that is, in other words, I'll just use the FA Cup as an example. Over in England, you see the entire English football calendars wiped clean for a weekend just so they can put FA Cup games on television, and it looks big time, right? The English media is making a huge deal about it, and it's just a completely different thing here. And I get that we're not necessarily there yet; it's going to take time to get to that level. But those are the types of things that I think, if talking about casual sports fans, those are the types of things that would grab casual sports fans to follow an Open Cup. Because for a guy like yourself or me who consume this constantly, it's not hard, right, to get us in there. But the casual guy needs to think that it's a big time thing for him to even follow it.
Yeah,
so I just wanted to see if you had a similar thought? Or?
No, I agree with you, but I think it's a chicken and egg problem, John. I mean, this is the case with a lot of things in American soccer. Thanks for the call. I got to get ready to wrap this up, but it's a case for a lot of things in American soccer. It's chicken and egg. It's how do you get the interest growing when there's no interest? How do you? It's a catch-22. We want to make the Open Cup bigger, but there's not enough money to invest in the Open Cup because there's not enough interest. So how do you get these two things come together? How do you find a place where this is not going to be big money, and maybe U.S. Soccer is trying to push this, and again, 100 times out of 100,000 times we have to give all the love and credit in the world to Josh Hakala and the Cup.us for pushing that tournament and being the voice of that tournament in this in American soccer circles for the last 5 years, however long Josh has been doing it. Maybe it's even longer than that. But I'm okay with U.S. Soccer pushing into this realm because they have a bigger voice, because they have more resources. And again, they need to find that happy medium. How do we spend enough money to push this tournament forward when there isn't enough interest in order to justify it necessarily? What's the balancing act? And this is again true for everything. Let's push this. Okay, let's get the media involved. Media, please push the Open Cup. All right. Well, what's in it for us? Nobody cares. Well, if you push it, people will care. Right. But nobody cares right now, so we're putting in effort for a pointless exercise. I mean, again, lots of questions to be answered there. I don't know what the answers are right now. But this is why we exist. This is why we're here, Soccer Morning. Please go get a Soccer Morning mug at backheel.com/store. I've seen some more pictures out there in the wild. Tweet me your pictures of your Soccer Morning mug. Be awesome. Tweet me your pictures of you doing some soccering things with your Soccer Morning mug. Like, I feel like people should be out kicking the ball around in the morning with their Soccer Morning mug in their hand. Now probably not with coffee in it because that might be dangerous. But you could just rep the show with your coffee mug or get a t-shirt. T-shirt probably sounds like a better thing for actually playing some soccer. Go to 30fc.com to do that. Fantastic stuff there. Open Cup on Twitter. And again, U.S. Open Cup for Josh and the Cup.us. Continue to follow them. Go follow them if you're not already. Jeff Crandall is Hefe Crandall on Twitter. Dan Wiersema from Free Beer Movement and American Outlaws was our other guest today. Thanks to both of those guys for coming on. Thanks for all the callers, man. You guys killed it today. You guys are awesome. Tomorrow is USA-Mexico. We'll preview that, I'm sure. Talk about U.S. women's national team roster. Lots of stuff coming up. Champions League today. We'll talk about that as well. See you tomorrow. Bye.